All right, today we're diving into a really powerful tool for mental well-being. It's something that might just completely change the way you relate to yourself. We're talking about self-compassion.
So let's just jump right in with a pretty big question. For decades, right, we've all been told that the goal is high self-esteem. But what if that whole chase, that constant need to feel good about ourselves, what if it's actually a trap? What if there's a better, more stable, more resilient path to well-being?
And that leads us right into our first section here, the self-esteem trap. We're going to take a look at why this goal that we've all been chasing, high self-esteem, can actually be, well, pretty flawed and kind of fragile. You know, this really gets to the heart of the problem. Self-esteem, it's conditional, isn't it? Like you get a promotion, you feel on top of the world, but then you face a setback, some rejection, and suddenly your self-worth just plummets. It's this total dependence on what's happening outside of you that puts you on this crazy emotional roller coaster you just can't seem to control.
And what's really fascinating here are the specific downsides. Chasing self-esteem, it almost forces you into this constant game of social comparison. You have to feel special or above average just to feel good. And the research is pretty clear. This kind of drive is linked to things like narcissism and to getting really defensive or even aggressive when your ego gets a little bruised. It's just not a solid foundation to build your mental health on, you know?
So if self-esteem is the trap, what's the alternative? Well, that brings us to the research-backed solution, self-compassion. Okay, so the definition here is absolutely crucial. Self-compassion is basically about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd give to a good friend when they're having a hard time. And it's so important to clear up a couple of myths right off the bat. This is not self-pity, where you just wallow in your problems. And it is not self-indulgence, which is basically an excuse to just let yourself off the hook for everything.
I love this quote from Dr. Kristen Neff, who's really the pioneer in this field. It just perfectly boils it all down. It's not some super complicated idea. It's just about taking that warmth and support you so easily give to other people and turning it inward, toward yourself.
But what does that actually look like, in the real world? Let's break this whole idea down into its three core pieces, because understanding these is the key to actually being able to use it. The key thing to get here is that these three pillars, they all work together. So first up is self-kindness. Instead of that inner voice telling you, wow, you really messed that up, you treat yourself with some warmth. Then there's common humanity. This is huge. It's the antidote to feeling so alone in your struggles. It's remembering, hey, everyone messes up, everyone struggles, you're not some weird exception. And finally, you've got mindfulness. This is all about just noticing your painful feelings without either shoving them down or letting them completely take over. And you can see how they're all connected, right? Mindfulness helps you actually see that you're in pain. Common humanity reminds you you're not the only one feeling it. And then self-kindness comes in to give you the support you need. They're a team.
Okay, so now that we've got a handle on what self-compassion is, let's put it side by side with self-esteem. It really makes the differences pop.
I mean, this table really says it all. Just look at stability. Self-esteem is that roller coaster. Self-compassion is a rock. Where does your worth come from? Well, self-esteem says you have to be above average, but self-compassion says your worth comes from just being human. And your reaction to failure? Self-esteem can lead to that brutal inner critic, while self-compassion leads to kindness. The difference is just profound. So here's the bottom line. The research shows that self-compassion is just as good, if not better, at predicting things like happiness and resilience as self-esteem. But, and this is a big but, it does it without all the baggage, without the narcissism, the constant comparing, and the ego defensiveness. You get all of the good stuff with none of the bad.
But this is where a lot of people get hung up. They start to worry that, being nice to yourself is just, well, an excuse to be lazy. So let's tackle that myth head on.
This is the number one fear, isn't it? That if we stop beating ourselves up, we'll just end up on the couch, never trying to improve. Is that mean inner critic really the only thing that's driving us forward? This analogy is just so powerful. Think about it. Would you try to motivate a kid you really care about by screaming at them that they're a worthless failure? No way. Of course not. You'd encourage them, you'd support them, and you'd let them know it's okay to make mistakes. Motivation that comes from a place of genuine care is so much more powerful and sustainable than motivation that comes from fear.
And the science totally backs this up. People who are more self-compassionate aren't lazy at all. They're actually more resilient. Because they're less terrified of failing, they're more willing to take risks. They bounce back way faster when things go wrong. And because they feel safe enough to look at their own weaknesses without a bunch of shame, they're actually in a much better position to change them for the better. All right, so we've busted the biggest myth. We know this is about being resilient, not lazy. So let's shift from the why to the how. Because this isn't just some nice idea, it's a skill you can actually build with some really practical, evidence-based exercises.
Okay, here's a super simple but seriously effective tool you can use anytime you're having a tough moment. It's called the self-compassion break. You just pause and say 3 things to yourself. First, this is a moment of suffering. You just acknowledge the pain, that's mindfulness. Second, suffering is a part of being human. You connect with everyone else, that's common humanity. And third, may I be kind to myself. You just offer yourself kindness. You can even try putting a hand on your heart while you do it. It sounds a little cheesy, but it can actually make it feel more real.
Here's another great one you can try, writing a letter. Think of a time you were really hard on yourself about something. Now imagine a close friend was going through that exact same situation. What would you say to them? What would you write? Well, write that letter, but then address it to yourself. It's a really amazing way to shift your whole perspective.
So as we start to wrap this up, the real key takeaway is this. While self-esteem is kind of built on the shifting sands of success and failure, self-compassion gives you this bedrock foundation of kindness that's always there for you, especially when everything seems to be falling apart.
And I want to leave you with just one final thought to chew on. Just imagine for a second. What could you actually achieve in your job, in your relationships, in just becoming the person you want to be, if your default response to failure wasn't that sharp, nasty criticism, but instead it was genuine, supportive kindness? What would be possible then?